Xyrex, an elite soldier from the Zorathian Empire, stood at the edge of the airlock, his dark eyes scanning the bleak expanse of the moon's surface. His battalion, a group of hardened alien warriors, had arrived on Earth's moon for what seemed like an easy mission. They were here to investigate a newly detected human outpost, an outpost that, according to their intelligence, was built from outdated Earth technology. Xyrex's sharp features twisted into a smile as he surveyed the area. He could see the human structures in the distance, their metallic surfaces tarnished and worn. To the Zorathian soldiers, who had advanced weapons, cloaking technology, and superior ships, the sight of the human outpost was laughable. Pathetic, Xyrex muttered, shaking his head as he surveyed the cracked ships scattered across the surface. How can such primitive beings survive, let alone make their presence known to us? The rest of his battalion chuckled, their voices low and condescending. What do they think they're doing? Sending out relics to the void. One of them sneered, pointing at an old ship that looked as though it had been put together with spare parts. Let's make this quick, Xyrex ordered, his voice laced with impatience. Search for anything useful, and then return to the mothership. These humans are no match for us. As they moved forward, Xyrex's senses were alert. The human outpost was quiet, too quiet for a species that was supposedly so advanced. He found it strange, almost eerie, how still everything was. No activity, no defense systems, just the silence of the desolate moon. His squad moved into position, each soldier checking their weapons and scanning the surroundings. Xyrex's eyes narrowed when he noticed something out of place, a strange energy signature coming from a nearby hangar. The readings on his device were faint but distinct, indicating that something was powering up inside the structure. His instincts told him to investigate, but the others were less enthusiastic. It's probably just a malfunction, one of the soldiers scoffed, tapping his wrist device. These humans couldn't even maintain their own ships, let alone build anything of value. Xyrex ignored the dismissive comment. His mind raced. There was something about this signal that didn't sit right with him. His superior training told him to trust his instincts. He motioned for his squad to follow him as he made his way toward the hangar. Stay alert, Xyrex ordered, his voice sharp. They entered the hangar, a large cavern filled with shadows and abandoned human vehicles. As they ventured deeper, Xyrex's eyes locked onto a small ship at the far end of the room. At first glance, it looked like nothing special, just another rusty vessel that looked decades past its prime. But the energy signature was coming from it, and Xyrex knew that no human ship could generate such a powerful reading without something extraordinary hidden inside. Xyrex approached the ship, his boots echoing in the empty space. He could hear the faint hum of the ship's systems, but it wasn't powered up in the conventional sense. The ship was dark, its exterior battered, as if it had been through several battles. His soldiers stood in the background, still laughing and mocking the primitive craft. Look at this, Xyrex said, gesturing towards the ship. A toy by our standards. How can this pathetic thing generate that much energy? One of the soldiers walked up to Xyrex, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Maybe it's just a glitch. Human technology doesn't stand a chance against the might of Zorathian ships. Xyrex hesitated for a moment, then made his decision. I'll check it out myself. You lot stay here. He climbed up into the ship, his fingers brushing the dusty hull. The moment his hand touched the surface, the hum in the air grew louder. The ship seemed to react to his touch, its lights flickering to life, as if waking from a long slumber. Xyrex stepped inside, his eyes scanning the interior. Inside, the cockpit was far more advanced than it looked on the outside. The interface was sleek, filled with holographic projections and glowing panels. But the moment Xyrex sat in the pilot's seat, a soft whirring noise filled the air, and the ship seemed to activate, as though it had been waiting for him. Diva, a voice said, clear and metallic. Initiating systems. Welcome, Xyrex. Xyrex froze, his hand hovering over the controls. He didn't recognize the voice or the ship's language, but the intelligence behind it was undeniable. His mind raced. This wasn't just any human ship. This was something else entirely, something far beyond what he had expected. What? What is this? Zyrex whispered, more to himself than anyone else. He started tapping on the holographic controls, trying to make sense of the strange symbols. The ship seemed to respond to his commands, the holograms shifting and rearranging. He could feel the ship's power now, pulsing beneath his fingertips. The soldiers outside continued to mock the ship, calling it useless, dismissing it as nothing more than a relic. But Zyrex wasn't laughing anymore. He was starting to understand the true potential of what he was dealing with. This wasn't just a ship, it was a weapon, and a powerful one at that. Suddenly, the ship's AI, Diva, spoke again. Warning. Incoming fleet detected. Alien forces have tracked your location. Zyrex's heart skipped a beat. His hands froze over the controls as the ship began to hum louder, its systems coming online at a rapid pace. It was like the ship itself was preparing for battle. What the hell? Zyrex muttered, his mind racing. He had expected to find a relic, something that would be easy to discard and report back to his commanders. But instead, he had stumbled upon something far more dangerous. And now, with an alien fleet on its way, the ship was preparing itself for war. The alarms blared, and Zyrex's laughter turned to confusion, then fear. This wasn't a malfunction. This was something else entirely. The ship's systems were responding to the imminent threat, its weapons powering up, its engines revving to life. Outside, Zyrex's soldiers finally stopped laughing. They had no idea what was going on inside the ship, but they could feel the shift in the atmosphere. Something was wrong. Zyrex stood up, his hand shaking slightly as he realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a human outpost. It was a trap, and humans had planned it all along. They had lured the alien fleet right to them with their primitive technology, and now Zyrex was stuck in the middle of it. The ship's eye spoke again, her voice calm yet urgent. Prepare for battle. Incoming fleet in 2 minutes. Zyrex's heart pounded in his chest. He was no longer dealing with a mockery of human technology. This was a well-orchestrated trap, and he was about to face the full force of human ingenuity. He couldn't help but feel a flicker of respect for the species he had once considered inferior. Zorethian fleet, Zyrex murmured, a smile slowly creeping onto his face. You've underestimated humans for the last time. With that, the battle for Earth's survival had begun. Zyrex's heart was still pounding in his chest as the ship's systems powered up around him. The ship's AI, Diva, had already begun her automated sequence of battle preparations, but Zyrex was struggling to make sense of what was happening. He had expected to find nothing but a primitive relic of human ingenuity, something that would be an easy target for his Zorethian fleet. Instead, he had discovered a force far beyond his comprehension. The human vessel's capabilities were far more advanced than anything he had ever seen. Diva, Zyrex growled, trying to keep his composure. What is this ship? What are its capabilities? Diva's voice came through clear and calm. Warning. Cloaking devices engaged. Advanced weapon systems armed. AI override activated. Zyrex's eyes widened. He could feel the ship responding to his every command, as if it were alive, attuned to his thoughts. The ship had a mind of its own, an intelligence far beyond what any alien race had created. Zyrex couldn't fathom how the humans had achieved this level of sophistication, but there was no time to dwell on the mystery. The alien fleet was already on its way, and the countdown to battle had begun. Outside the cockpit window, the sky was beginning to darken as the alien ships descended toward the moon's surface. The fleet was massive, hundreds of warships, all armed to the teeth, their weapons poised for destruction. Zyrex gritted his teeth. This was supposed to be an easy mission, a simple reconnaissance. But now, the entire situation had turned upside down. He had no choice but to fight. The Zorethian fleet was powerful, but Xerxes knew that this wasn't a battle of numbers. This was a battle of technology. And the humans, with their strange ship, had already proven that they were far from the pushovers he had imagined. Xerxes punched a series of controls, trying to focus on the task at hand. He wasn't a pilot. He was a soldier, a warrior trained for hand-to-hand combat, for brutal strikes and cold tactics. But now he had to become a pilot. He had to become something he wasn't. Diva. He called out, his voice strained with urgency. Give me control. I need to know what this ship can do. Without hesitation, Diva's voice responded. Activating pilot override. Systems engage. Weapons online. Suddenly, the ship's interface flooded with information. Readouts, schematics, and data streams Xerxes had never encountered before. The ship's AI guided him through the necessary steps to activate its advanced cloaking system. With a flick of his hand, the ship vanished from sight, cloaking itself in a near-invisible field. Xerxes didn't need to be told that the alien fleet had no idea where he was. He could feel the ship's energy, the power surging through its systems. With a snap of his fingers, the ship moved, faster than anything he had ever experienced. He could feel the surge of speed as the ship shot forward, its engines roaring to life. But the enemy fleet wasn't far behind. Xerxes barely had time to react before the first barrage of energy blasts exploded against the ship's shields, shaking the cockpit violently. The force of the blast rattled his bones, and the sound of the impacts reverberated through the ship. It was like nothing Xerxes had ever felt before. His own fleet's weapons couldn't even make a dent in the shields of this human ship. Activate countermeasures, Xerxes barked, trying to regain his composure. The ship's systems responded immediately. A wave of energy pulses shot out from the ship, deflecting the enemy fire and creating a protective barrier around the ship. But the fleet wasn't backing down. As the alien ships closed in, Xerxes could see their weapons priming for another round of devastating attacks. The battle outside was just beginning, and the tension in the air was palpable. Xerxes' hands gripped the controls tightly, his mind racing with calculations. He could see the enemy ships in his peripheral vision, closing in like a swarm of insects, their weapons poised to strike. Then, just as Xerxes began to steady himself, a voice crackled through the comms, a taunting voice that sent a chill down his spine. Xerxes, you coward, the voice sneered. I am Commander Ralthor of the Vornan fleet. You should have known better than to believe these humans could protect you. Their technology is primitive, just like their weak, pathetic species. Xerxes' blood boiled at the insult. He had heard rumors about the Vornan fleet's ruthless reputation, but hearing their leader's voice, filled with contempt and arrogance, made the stakes feel even higher. Ralthor's fleet was known for its devastating firepower and tactical brilliance, but Xerxes knew something Ralthor didn't. The human ship, this primitive relic, held far more power than anything the Vornan fleet could imagine. Ralthor, Xerxes said, his voice filled with an unexpected calm. You will regret underestimating humans. Xerxes' mind raced as the battle raged on outside. He had never felt the adrenaline like this before. No longer was he the predator. Now, he was fighting alongside something far more dangerous than anything he had encountered. This was no longer just a fight for survival. This was a fight for pride, for honor, for the very survival of humanity. The alien ships continued to close in, their energy blasts intensifying as they tried to break through the ship's defenses. Xerxes could feel his heart pounding in his chest, but now it was no longer fear that gripped him. It was exhilaration. For the first time in his life, he was fighting for something more than just a mission. He was fighting for the very existence of Earth. Diva, he called, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. What do I need to do next? Activating weapons systems, Diva responded, her voice as calm as ever. Firing main cannon. Xerxes' fingers danced over the controls, his breath held in anticipation. The ship's cannons, hidden beneath its hull, began to glow with a menacing energy. With a thunderous roar, the energy blasts shot out toward the enemy fleet, tearing through the air with devastating force. The first shot hit its mark, obliterating one of the Vornin ships in a burst of flame and debris. Xyrex's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't believe it. The human ship, the ship he had mocked, had just destroyed one of the most advanced alien ships in the galaxy. The alien fleet's leader, Commander Ralphor, was growing increasingly desperate. "You can't win this fight, Xyrex. You and your pathetic human ship are nothing." Xyrex clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. He could see the alien ships closing in for another strike. But he knew that the human ship had something the Vornin fleet didn't: heart. The ship might be built with technology far beyond their comprehension, but it was the spirit of humanity that made it truly unstoppable. As the battle continued, Xyrex couldn't shake the question that had been plaguing his mind. How had the humans built such a powerful ship? How had they created something that could stand up to the might of the galaxy's greatest fleets? The answer, he realized, was simple. Humans had a tenacity, a drive, that no amount of technology could ever replicate. It was that drive that made them truly powerful. The battle raged on, but Xyrex's determination never wavered. The Vornin fleet might have had numbers, but they didn't have what humans had: the will to fight until the very end. And as the human ship's weapons powered up for the final strike, Xyrex knew one thing for certain: this was just the beginning. The battle outside the ship was growing more intense by the second. Xyrex's hands gripped the controls, feeling the power of the human vessel beneath him as he adjusted the shields to absorb the incoming fire. His heart raced, not just with adrenaline, but with something else: an overwhelming sense of awe. How could a species like humanity create such an advanced machine, a warship capable of standing up to fleets far more powerful and numerous? The very thought seemed impossible, but there was no time to waste on questions. The alien fleet was on their tail, and Xyrex had to focus on the battle at hand. His squad, still reeling from the shock of the unexpected turn of events, was scattered around the area, trying to regroup and form a strategy. The enemy was closing in fast, and they had no intention of giving up easily. "Diva," Xyrex's voice was steady but urgent. "Take control of targeting systems. Let's show them what this ship can really do." The AI's calm voice responded. "Targeting systems engage. Firing weapons." Xyrex barely had time to brace himself as the ship's cannons fired a massive blast toward the closest alien ship. The sheer force of the shot shook the entire vessel, and through the cockpit window, Xyrex saw the alien ship disintegrate in a fiery explosion, its metal structure ripped apart by the devastating energy. The alien fleet retaliated immediately, but Xyrex was no longer the naive soldier who had mocked the human technology. With each blast that struck his ship's shields, and with each maneuver he executed, his respect for the vessel grew. The ship's cloaking system activated, and he vanished from sight, narrowly avoiding a barrage of laser fire. He could feel the ship's pulse as it moved, like a predator stalking its prey. Xyrex had never experienced such a high-speed dogfight in space. As the enemy closed in, he was able to outmaneuver them with ease, his hands deftly guiding the ship through the intricate dance of evasive moves. The ship felt alive beneath him, responding to his every command like an extension of his own will. With every pulse of energy from the ship's weapons, another alien ship was reduced to space debris. His squad, still in the vicinity, was in a similar struggle, but the odds were against them. The alien fleet was massive, with numbers overwhelming the human ships. Yet with each calculated strike, Xyrex felt the balance slowly shift in their favor. Despite the sheer size of the enemy fleet, the human technology, this ship was cutting through their ranks like a hot knife through butter. Xyrex's squad, Bonner included, was engaged in a brutal firefight of their own. His thoughts were focused on the battle, but his mind couldn't shake the nagging worry about Bonner's safety. He knew the risks. They all did. But when the explosion shook the area, Xyrex's heart dropped. Bonner's ship had been hit, and there was no way to avoid it. "Bonner!" Xyrex screamed into the comms, hoping against hope that his friend would respond. But there was nothing. Just the faint, static-filled sounds of the communications channel. Xyrex's blood ran cold as the horrifying reality set in. Bonner, one of his closest comrades, had been critically injured. Xyrex knew they were not invincible. The human lives he had taken for granted, believing that their technology would protect them, were still fragile, still breakable. This wasn't just a mission anymore. This was personal. "Diva." Xyrex's voice was cold with determination. "Lock in on the enemy fleet's command ship. I'm ending this now." Without hesitation, Diva followed the command, locking onto the flagship of the alien fleet. Xyrex could feel the power of the ship's weapons powering up, the energy building as the ship prepared to fire. He aimed the ship's cannons at the massive, looming vessel in the distance, its shields flickering with every shot from the human warship. Xyrex didn't wait. With a swift motion, he released a barrage of missiles, each one targeting the weak points of the alien ship. The missiles struck the command ship with precision, their explosion tearing through the ship's outer defenses, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The alien ship shuddered, its energy shields collapsing under the weight of the assault. The Zorethian fleet, still trying to regroup, was losing ground. Xyrex could see the confusion in the alien ranks. They had never expected humanity to have the upper hand, to possess the technology, and the will to fight back like this. But Xyrex wasn't finished. He wasn't just fighting for victory anymore. He was fighting for Bonner, for the countless human lives that had been lost in this battle, for the families back on Earth who had no idea that their soldiers were now locked in a battle for survival against a far superior enemy. The thought of Bonner's sacrifice fueled his rage. He couldn't allow this to be for nothing. As the alien fleet's remaining ships regrouped and began to counterattack, Xyrex fought harder, pushing the ship to its limits. The ship's systems were operating at maximum capacity, every weapon firing with deadly accuracy, every movement fluid and precise. Xyrex dodged a barrage of incoming fire, the ship swerving to the left with a grace that belied its size. He fired again, this time hitting the weak points of another alien vessel. The explosion rocked the battlefield, and Xyrex's heart pounded in his chest as he saw the enemy fleet starting to fall apart. Through the chaos, the voice of Commander Ralthor came through again, full of disbelief. "Impossible. You're just humans. How can you do this?" Xyrex smiled grimly. "We're not just humans. We're survivors." With that, Xyrex pushed the ship into its final assault. The fleet's command ship, now crippled and bleeding energy, was the last target. Xyrex focused all of the ship's remaining firepower on it, releasing the final barrage of energy pulses directly into the heart of the alien vessel. The resulting explosion lit up the sky, sending debris flying in all directions. The battle had been won. But Xyrex didn't feel the rush of victory that he expected. Instead, he felt the hollow emptiness of loss. Bonner's sacrifice weighed heavily on his heart. It had been a hard-fought battle, but it had come at a cost. The remaining alien ships, leaderless and broken, began to retreat, their morale shattered by the unexpected resistance. Xyrex watched them flee, his fingers still gripping the controls, his heart racing with the aftermath of the fight. He had won, but the victory tasted bitter. Diva's voice was calm and soothing, cutting through the silence that had settled in the aftermath. Battle complete. Damage assessment in progress. Victory achieved. Xyrex nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He could still see Bonner's face, still hear his friend's voice in his mind. This victory would never bring him peace, but it would fuel the fire of humanity's resolve. They had survived. And that was all that mattered. Xyrex sat back in the pilot's seat, his thoughts clouded with grief and pride. The human ship, once nothing more than an old relic in his eyes, had proven its worth in the crucible of war. Now it had become a symbol of humanity's unbreakable will. The fight was over, but for Xyrex, the journey was only beginning. And he knew one thing for sure: he would never underestimate humanity again. Xyrex gritted his teeth as he watched the battle unfold. The alien fleet had regrouped, their ships forming a tight perimeter around their command ship. They believed victory was within their grasp. After all, they had superior numbers, advanced technology, and they were dealing with humans. How could these fragile creatures possibly stand a chance? But Xyrex had already learned the harsh truth. Underestimating humanity was a fatal mistake. The blood of his fallen comrades, especially Bonner, was a constant reminder of that. His squad was in chaos. The alien fleet was relentless, and despite the power of the human ship, they were being pushed back. Ships were taking damage, and Xyrex could feel the pressure mounting with each passing second. But he wasn't about to surrender. Not after everything that had happened. Not after what Bonner had given. "Xyrex, we can't keep this up." One of his soldiers, Barrick, yelled through the comms. His voice was strained, full of panic. "We'll make it. Trust me," Xyrex responded, his voice steady. He wasn't sure how they would make it out, but he wasn't ready to admit defeat. Not yet. Xyrex's mind raced as he scanned the battlefield. The enemy was cocky, confident in their imminent victory. They had no idea what was coming for them. A plan began to form in his mind, a desperate but calculated move. He knew the alien fleet had a blind spot. If he could exploit it, they might have a chance. Xyrex's heart pounded in his chest, but he knew that in war, hesitation was the greatest enemy. "We're going to trick them," Xyrex said. His voice was filled with determination. Barrick sounded confused. "What do you mean? How are we supposed to?" "Trust me," Xyrex interrupted. "I got a plan." He activated the cloaking system on the human ship, and for a brief moment, they vanished from the alien radar. The eerie silence that followed felt surreal. The tension in the cockpit was palpable as Xyrex expertly maneuvered the ship into position. With the alien fleet still pursuing, confident that the humans had retreated, Xyrex prepared for his move. He positioned the human warship behind the alien flagship, out of sight and out of mind. The fleet, thinking they had won, had lowered their defenses, unaware that the most devastating attack of the battle was about to strike. Xyrex's heart raced as he powered up the ship's weapons. The final countdown in his mind began. This was it. He couldn't afford to fail. "Hold tight," Xyrex said, his voice low and steady. "It's time to show them what we've got." With a flick of his wrist, Xyrex deactivated the cloak. The ship reappeared from its hiding place, like a predator emerging from the shadows. The alien fleet, caught completely off guard, scrambled to respond, but it was already too late. Xyrex launched a series of orbital bombardments, each blast precisely aimed at the vulnerable sections of the alien ships. The explosions were deafening, lighting up the battlefield in a dazzling display of destruction. It was as if the sky itself had cracked open, raining down human-made fury on the unsuspecting alien fleet. The alien ships were torn apart by the bombardments, their once imposing structures crumbling in seconds. The visual was stunning. Human technology, once dismissed as primitive and weak, now dominated the battlefield. The aliens, once full of confidence, were thrown into disarray. Panic spread through their ranks as they realized that the humans weren't the weaklings they had once believed. Xyrex's hands were steady on the controls, even as the ship rocked with the force of his own strikes. But inside, he was on fire. The memory of Bonner's sacrifice fueled him with a rage that couldn't be quenched. Every explosion, every ship he destroyed, was for Bonner. For every human who had ever been underestimated, for every soldier who had fallen in the fight for survival. As the last of the alien ships around him exploded, Xyrex's heart pounded in his chest, but he wasn't done yet. The flagship was still standing. Its massive form loomed before him, the command center of the alien fleet. It had to be destroyed. He wouldn't stop until it was nothing but space debris. His fingers danced across the controls, locking onto the alien flagship. Xyrex didn't hesitate. He fired again, unleashing the full power of the ship's weapons. A massive burst of energy slammed into the flagship's shields, but it wasn't enough to stop it. Xyrex fired again, harder this time, the ship's energy surging with the power of 100 men's determination. The shields flickered, and for a moment, Xyrex thought they might hold. But then, with a deafening roar, the shields shattered, and the final assault struck the heart of the flagship. The explosion was massive, sending debris scattering in all directions. The flagship, the symbol of the alien fleet's power, was gone. It was a victory that felt like revenge, but it was also a painful reminder of the cost of war. Xyrex sat back in the pilot's seat, his hand still gripping the controls. The battle was over, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like something else, a hollow, bittersweet triumph. The price of that victory had been too high. The comms crackled to life, Varric's voice coming through. Xyrex, we did it. We won. But, Bonner. Xyrex closed his eyes, the weight of his friend's death crashing down on him once again. Yeah, we won, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But it's not enough, Varric. It'll never be enough. He could feel the tears welling up in his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. He wouldn't cry for Bonner. Not now. He had a job to do. He had to honor Bonner's memory, not by mourning, but by living. By continuing the fight. Diva, Xyrex said, his voice hoarse. Status report. The fleet is destroyed. Diva's calm voice replied. All alien ships have been eliminated. Xyrex nodded. He had done it. They had done it. But the victory would always be tainted by the loss. Bonner's death was a wound that would never heal, and the memory of the fight would stay with him forever. Xyrex's grip tightened on the controls as he turned the ship toward home. Earth was still out there, still waiting for their victory. And now, the humans would know that they had fought, and they had won, not just because of their technology, but because of their spirit, their tenacity. As the ship sailed through the silence of space, Xyrex could hear Bonner's voice in his mind. We're survivors, Xyrex. Always remember that. And Xyrex did. He remembered, and he fought for the future, for humanity, for Bonner. The war wasn't over, but humanity had made a statement, one that would echo through the galaxy for years to come. The vast expanse of space was eerily quiet as Xyrex's ship drifted in the aftermath of the battle. The alien fleet had been decimated, their once mighty forces reduced to nothing more than floating debris. But even in victory, Xyrex couldn't shake the weight of the loss. Bonner's death still hung heavy on his heart, a constant reminder of what had been sacrificed for this moment. But now there was no time for mourning. Commander Rolthor, the alien fleet leader, was not one to retreat. He was relentless, and Xyrex knew that the worst was yet to come. If the aliens were going to strike back, they would do it now, in a final desperate attempt to destroy humanity. Xyrex clenched his fists around the control panel as the comms crackled to life. It was Diva, the ship's AI, her voice calm and measured. Xyrex, Commander Rolthor has ordered a full-scale assault. The remaining alien forces are preparing to engage. Xyrex didn't hesitate. He had come this far, and he wasn't about to let Rolthor and his forces destroy everything they had fought for. The time had come for the final confrontation. This was it. The endgame. We're not backing down, Xyrex said, his voice cold and steady. Prepare for combat, Diva. We're going to finish this. With a deep breath, Xyrex activated the ship's systems, his mind focused, the adrenaline pumping through his veins. The ship's AI hummed to life, guiding him through every move. But Xyrex knew it wasn't just the technology that would win this fight. It was his determination, his will to survive. It was the same human spirit that had carried humanity through countless challenges, and now it was his turn to embody that strength. The alien fleet was closing in, their ships swarming like locusts, intent on finishing what they had started. Xyrex's heart raced, but he remained calm, his mind calculating the best course of action. He had seen what the human ship was capable of, and now it was time to unleash its full potential. The first wave of missiles came at them, fired from the alien fleet with deadly precision. Xyrex's hands flew across the controls, the ship twisting and turning as he dodged the incoming barrage. His reflexes were sharp, his focus unwavering as the ship veered and rolled to avoid the onslaught. "Come on, you overgrown bugs," Xyrex muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing as he locked onto the incoming alien ships. The ship's weapons systems activated, and with a flick of his wrist, Xyrex unleashed a barrage of laser fire. The enemy ships exploded one by one, their shields no match for the power of human engineering. The ship's AI guided every shot, each one landing with pinpoint accuracy, tearing through the alien fleet with terrifying efficiency. But even as the alien forces were being torn apart, Xyrex knew that Ralthor was watching, waiting for his moment to strike. The alien leader had been calculating, and Xyrex could sense that the final battle was going to be unlike anything he had faced before. And then it happened. A massive ship, unlike any Xyrex had seen before, appeared at the forefront of the alien fleet. It was the flagship. Ralthor had arrived. The enemy leader's voice crackled over the comms, his tone filled with arrogance and venom. "Do you really think you can defeat me, human? You are nothing but insects. Your technology is primitive, and your spirit weak. You will fall, just like the rest of your kind." Xyrex felt the sting of Ralthor's words, but it only fueled his resolve. He wasn't about to let an alien warlord mock humanity, not after everything they had been through. He gritted his teeth, focusing all his energy on the task at hand. "This is where it ends, Ralthor," Xyrex said, his voice filled with determination. "You underestimate us. You've made a grave mistake." With a sudden burst of speed, Xyrex piloted the ship toward the alien flagship, his sights set on the heart of the enemy's command center. The flagship was massive, its weaponry formidable, but Xyrex wasn't intimidated. He knew the ship was vulnerable in certain areas. If he could just get in close enough, he could strike. The final battle was upon them, and Xyrex's pulse quickened as he engaged in a high-stakes dogfight. He dodged missiles, narrowly avoiding the enemy's attacks while unleashing his own deadly payload. The ship's powerful weapons tore through the alien fleet, each explosion sending shockwaves through space. But it was Ralthor's flagship that loomed large, and it was here that the true test would begin. Xyrex's ship danced through the battlefield, narrowly avoiding incoming fire as he closed the gap between him and the flagship. The AI guided his movements, calculating trajectories and adjusting course, but it was Xyrex's willpower that drove the ship forward. He refused to let Ralthor win. He refused to let humanity be wiped out. As the two ships locked in combat, the intensity of the battle reached its peak. Xyrex could see Ralthor's ship through his targeting system, a monstrous vessel bristling with weapons and shields. But Xyrex wasn't afraid. He had something Ralthor didn't: the will to fight until the end. The AI calculated a trajectory for a missile strike, and Xyrex didn't hesitate. He launched the missile with deadly precision, watching as it hurtled toward the alien flagship. The missile struck with a thunderous explosion, shaking the very fabric of space as the flagship's shields faltered. Xyrex didn't wait for the dust to settle. He fired again, this time with everything he had. The flagship's shields collapsed, and the second missile struck the heart of the alien command center. The ship shuddered as the explosion ripped through it, sending massive chunks of debris into space. The alien flagship, once a symbol of Ralthor's power, was now a burning wreck. But the battle wasn't over. Ralthor's ship still fought back, its weapons firing relentlessly. Xyrex was focused, his every move calculated, his mind sharp as a blade. He danced around the enemy fire, dodging missile after missile, as he closed in for the final strike. With a final burst of speed, Xyrex unleashed the full power of his ship, ramming it into the heart of Ralthor's flagship. The collision sent shockwaves through both ships, and Xerex could feel the heat of the explosion as the two vessels collided. The flagship's final moments were filled with the roar of engines and the screams of the dying. The final blow was delivered. Ralphor's ship exploded into a fiery inferno, its remnants scattering into the void of space. The battle was over. Xerex sat in the cockpit, his body tense with exhaustion, but his heart was filled with triumph. He had done it. He had defeated Ralphor. He had avenged the fallen. "We've sent the broadcast," Commander Jensen said, breaking his thoughts. "Your words will be heard across the galaxy." Xerex took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. This wasn't just about one battle. It was about a message, a statement to every alien race in the galaxy that humanity was no longer to be underestimated. His voice rang clear as he spoke into the comms. "Underestimate us, and you will fall," Xerex said, his voice unwavering. "This is not just a victory. It is the beginning of something new. Humanity will not be your prey anymore. We will fight, and we will win." The broadcast echoed through space, reaching every corner of the galaxy. Alien leaders, once confident in their supremacy, would now know that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. There would be no more underestimating the humans, no more dismissing them as weak or insignificant. Xerex turned back to the view screen, watching as the last remnants of the alien fleet burned in the distance. The war had taken its toll, but humanity had stood firm. The ship, battered but victorious, soared through the stars, a testament to the indomitable will of humanity. He stood there for a moment, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. He had gone from an alien soldier to a human hero, a symbol of their strength and resilience. He had fought for the fallen, for Bonner, and for all of humanity. The final message of his reflection was clear. Humans are not just survivors. They are the future. As the ship made its way deeper into space, Xerex looked ahead, knowing that the future was uncertain. But for the first time, he felt hope. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they could survive anything thrown at them, and they would continue to push forward, fighting for their future. And with that, the camera faded out as the ship disappeared into the vastness of space, a symbol of humanity's triumph and their unbreakable will. The human ship, battered but victorious, drifted in the aftermath of the battle. The enemy was gone, and humanity had won. Xerex took a deep breath, his hand still gripping the controls. The fight had been brutal, but it was worth it. For Bonner, for Earth, for humanity. The final assault had been a testament to human determination, and it was clear to all that the human spirit could not be broken. As Xerex looked out into the vast expanse of space, he knew that this victory would echo across the galaxy for years to come. The humans had proven their strength. They had shown that they would never back down, no matter the odds. And with that, Xerex's mission was complete. The vast expanse of space had fallen silent after the chaos of battle. The once overwhelming alien fleet was now nothing more than scattered wreckage, their ships floating in pieces as the remnants of the great battle drifted in the cold void. Among the ruins, Xerex stood at the helm of the human ship, the bridge quiet except for the soft hum of the systems still running. His eyes were fixed on the spot where Ralphor's flagship had once been, now a fiery wreck orbiting slowly in space. He felt a strange sense of finality wash over him. The fight was over. The victory was his, but it was humanity's victory. They had stood their ground, defied the odds, and proven that they were not the weak, primitive race that the alien forces had once thought them to be. No, humanity had become something far greater than anyone could have imagined. Xerex looked down at the floor, taking a deep breath. His heart still raced, his mind still processing the events of the last few hours. The final confrontation with Ralphor had been intense. He had seen the destruction, the chaos, and had felt the weight of every life lost during the battle. The face of his fallen comrade, Bonner, was still fresh in his memory, the pain of his death a permanent scar in Xerex's heart. But now, the alien fleet was no more. And Ralphor, the once unstoppable leader, had been defeated. The massive flagship had exploded in a blinding display of lights and fire. The sound of it still echoed in his mind as he stood on the bridge, staring into space. The alien forces, so confident in their superiority, had crumbled beneath the sheer will of humanity's resolve. "I never thought I'd see the day," Zyrex muttered to himself. Rolthor was so sure of himself, so sure we were nothing. Now look at them. His voice trailed off as his mind turned to the future. This battle may have ended in victory, but Zyrex knew this wasn't the last challenge humanity would face. The galaxy was vast, and there would always be more threats, more enemies. But one thing was certain: humanity had proven itself. They were no longer the underdog. They were no longer the easy target. Zyrex turned away from the view of the exploding wreckage, walking toward the console. His fingers ran lightly over the controls, still trying to process what had just happened. The AI, Diva, was silent, as though even she was reflecting on the magnitude of their victory. "There's still a long way to go, Zyrex," Diva finally spoke, her calm voice cutting through the silence. "The war is far from over. But today, we made our mark." Zyrex nodded, his mind sharp despite the exhaustion that pulled at him. He had fought for survival. He had fought for humanity's future. And now, they had something to prove to the galaxy. His comms blinked on, signaling an incoming transmission. Zyrex activated it, and the face of Commander Jensen, the human leader of their fleet, appeared on the screen. The commander's face was streaked with dirt, but his expression was one of quiet pride. "Zyrex," Commander Jensen said, his voice crackling with emotion. "You did it. You took down Rolthor. The aliens won't be able to recover from this. You've shown the galaxy what humans are capable of." Zyrex nodded solemnly. "It wasn't just me, sir. We all fought for this. Bonner, the rest of the squad, everyone who fell. This victory is theirs as much as it is mine." "I know," Jensen replied. "But today, you became a symbol of human strength. We are no longer seen as weak, no longer prey to alien invaders. The tables have turned." The comms flickered for a moment, and Zyrex could see that Commander Jensen was struggling to hold back tears. His voice softened as he spoke again. "We will send word to the galaxy, Zyrex. Your victory will be broadcast to every corner of the known universe. The alien invaders who laughed at us will know they've made a grave mistake." Zyrex stared at the screen for a moment, lost in thought. He had gone from being an alien soldier fighting for a cause he didn't believe in to being the one who had saved humanity. Now he was standing on the precipice of something greater, something the galaxy would never forget. The message was clear.